do the sound check.
Well, Zoom has spoiled me.
Yeah. Yeah, for the folks on Livestream now, we just went live on Livestream, by the way. I think I'm kind of spoiled on Zoom too. It's an easier way to share videos and generally share screens and whatnot. And so we'll probably be moving from the Livestream to Zoom, I think exclusively. I might continue posting things to Livestream though.
Well, July 30th was a smash. The audio was turned up and the video was great. The cameraman did a pretty good job.
Okay, well, thanks for that feedback.
A lot of neat stuff.
Yeah. What struck you as some of the cooler things about that?
Well, that let's see, they used two copper tubes bent in a circle and sealed up and filled with GANs. And then they had all the nano-coated wires going around it like a Christmas wreath, you know, that old rat's nest. And you could see all kinds of burn marks and stuff from the energy. That was quite a layout.
Yeah, okay.
And Keshe even mentioned communications, somehow teleporting communications over these devices. And I would say that would be in subspace, and it would be instantaneous communications.
Yeah.
Much like I put those questions up there, but I didn't get around to asking them.
That will be an interesting way of communication, instant communication, but not with words and not with sounds.
Oh.
It can't really be instant when there's sound involved, I suppose, in a way.
We could have our own private channels across the globe.
The great thing is, I feel no channels actually will be needed. But it will be a different way, but let's wait for the teaching. Probably some gradient steps are needed for everyone to catch up with it.
Yeah, it's a pretty big idea. Okay, does anyone have anything particular they want to show right now? Other than I've got the Zoom meeting screen on here, I need to put something more interesting up. I don't have anything particular that comes to mind right now.
Just a very short thing. I have not much to show, but some people asked about how to cut sheets and so on. So just I want to show, I just got from Germany 2 plates. Actually, the shipment costs more than the plate itself. This is zinc plate. I've got some zinc plates, and its thickness is 0.8 or something like that.
That's solid zinc as opposed to the zinc plate.
Yes, it's the pure zinc. And this is the tool which I recommend to use for working on small quantities, or a couple of pieces per year. If you are going, these are called snips.
Shandor, you could really ask me. I could send you a plate. I have a zinc plate meter by meter. They're here inexpensive, like a plate was even less than 20 euros.
Yeah, so a plate like this is about €2 only. The both plates are €2. The shipment is €9.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
You could
that's the
get
problem.
a meter of plate. Yeah, but
Yeah,
never
Yeah,
mind.
I cannot handle a meter of plate. I cannot bring it. So I choose the size which fits into my mailbox. And about the snips, I saw the way it's packing. Does no matter. You can find it. It's about $10 a pair of snips. It's not something expensive, and you can struggle a little bit. It will bend a little bit, but after that you can straighten easily the plates. If you are going to produce more quantities, or you are going to make a series production, then you need those shares which you fix on a bench. It has a big arm and it needs a heavy bench, but for that you need some space. It's not for a living room like I'm using for a lab. That's if you have a garage. So a good table shares costs about $200-300. So that's a different thing. So that I wanted to say, and you see my eyes are not very well slept, so I keep talking less and continue tasks which I still have to do. So.
And you shaved the beard.
Yes, it's another task I have to do it.
Okay, thanks, Sander. Appreciate that input.
Okay, you're welcome.
There, I can overdrive the microphone a bit. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's not distorted. Anyway, okay. On the end of the 30th, Miran handed up some gifts from the Philippines, nano-coated wire that you apply to a battery. This is something that so a whole bunch of people on another group within Skype have been working on, and I came up with a system of my own, this is basically what it looks like. I'm using solid core wire instead of stranded wire, simply for simplicity's sake, and to get the length as much length as I can in a very short space. I've coiled them in nice little flat coils like this, and we've discussed it over and over and looked at it a million different ways, and we found out that we need to do opposite directions of vortexes, using a clockwise vortex on the negative terminal of the battery and a counterclockwise vortex on the positive terminal of the battery. That seems to work really, really well. And there's another view, nice and flat. Nano-coat them. I used the cold caustic method. Essentially just put them in a little tub with on a rack with a little tiny bit of caustic at the bottom, and just give it a shake so that they got wet every couple hours. And the coating turned out actually quite nice on both coils. I used a plastic Pringles lid, poked a hole in it so that I could encapsulate this device. My first idea was to encapsulate it in a bath of GANs, but then I got impatient and I decided I wasn't going to go that route this time around. And so I silicone. That's kind of a lousy picture, but you can see the silicone to seal that hole up in the center and keep everything tight. And there's a ring of silicone around the outside of the Pringles cup or Pringles cap, and a lid pressed on so that they can't short out. They're, you know, if anything happens, if they fall out, they're not going to get damaged. They're not going to touch the hood of the truck or anything like that. So and these are intended to go on top post batteries where you have the split clamp. There's always a little bit of a gap in the clamp, but you just slide that pin that's hanging down into that little slot.
John,
go ahead.
Would it be true that there's no air in between the coils and so on? It's all silicone, and then you have that cover put on. Is that the way it goes?
Well, you can see in this picture, there's a blob of silicone right in the center to seal the hole up that they go through. And then there's a ring of silicone around the outside. What's in the middle is just air.
There is air in the middle, but it's trapped in there. It's not exposed to the outside, right? It's just... No.
The idea was more of an electrical insulation than anything. Okay. I suppose it protects it from the environment as well. But the coiling idea and putting them in a plastic enclosure came from a fella who did it with a motorcycle, and that made when he described that, it just made so much sense to me. Now I've put these on a truck. We've got them on the truck, and I've got another set on a friend's car. I'll get a report on how they're working tomorrow. But when I put them on the truck ran pretty good. It's a Ford Explorer, 2000 Ford Explorer. And it ran pretty good. The mileage was okay. It wasn't great, but it's a V6, so what do you expect? And but it always idled a little bit rough. And when it was warm, it would surge before you step on the gas, when you put it into gear and you're backing out of a parking spot or something, it would surge. Well, I noticed within 10 minutes of putting these things on there that when we're sitting idling, I couldn't tell the engine was running by the vibration, because there was no vibration. It smoothed that engine out incredible. Like, it was so smooth. It felt like it wasn't even running. Well, on a top post battery with the standard battery clamp, not the brass battery clamps, but the lead type battery clamps, there's a groove in the center of the clamp, and there's just about enough space for these pins, like you see right here.
Right, I see. Gotcha.
In this version, just slide down inside that. You don't even, I think they're just sitting on there, really.
Yeah.
If you're worried about them jumping off, there isn't a whole lot of room underneath the hood of that truck, so I don't expect them to jump off. But if you're worried about them jumping off, you can loosen that clamp up, spread it a little bit with a screwdriver, put it in, jam it in there nice and tight, and then tighten the clamp back up again.
Yeah, I see. Thanks.
Another stupid question. Do you have certain length for it, or
a certain which length?
Length, yeah.
These were 10 inches when I started. And it was just an intuitive, I just pulled the wire out and looked at it and went, that feels about right. And I did roughly the same size for a 4-cylinder Hyundai, which is the other vehicle that I've got a pair of these installed in. And it's a much newer vehicle, so I don't expect Lee to really see a notice in the way it drives, except for, as Alex had explained, the steering might get a little bit light. It might corner a little bit better, but I do expect Lee to come back and say, yeah, well, I drove all week and I haven't used any gas.
I have a small suggestion. You could maybe use paraffin instead of silicone. Melt paraffin and then just spill it over, because you will avoid the tiny air gaps with paraffin.
I wasn't concerned about the air gaps, and paraffin under an engine bond.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I have different stupid suggestions. Just use shrink tubing. Put it on top of this and shrink it, and it should be okay.
Yeah, that would work too. I mean, it depends on the kind of material you're using. I just used what I could scrounge up here. And if I had $20 and I could go buy some new stuff, I'd probably put it in aquarium tubing and set that up. And then I could make a really long one, which would do the same thing. It would isolate it from any of the metal in the truck, because in a vibratory situation where it's going to be under vibration and constant motion, like it will be it will eventually wear through the nano-coating, and you're going to wind up with the positive post of your battery attached directly to the body of your car. So that's why that's more than anything, that's why I encapsulate it in plastic.
You could try a clear spray enamel.
It's still going to wear out really fast. It'll last, like it'll work. It'll last, I don't know, maybe a week, 10 days. It's not going to last very long.
Now I understand the GAN's production units, the retail ones, they had a problem with the coating coming off, and somebody said that they're coated with silicone now. And I thought, oh, you can cover the nano coat with a coating of any flavor you want, probably.
Pretty much. That came up in our group, and we discussed that at length. And what I use is shoe waterproofing, a silicone shoe waterproofing, and I spray my plates with that, and they work just fine. And the coating lasts for a long time. But they're not subject to any sort of abrasion, where they would be bouncing around and being vibrated in the wind and everything that's under the hood of your car. Any more questions?
That was a good report. Thank you very much.
No, you're most welcome.
Anybody else have something they'd like to report or say at this time and place? Gonna force me to improvise here.
Yeah, this is Jamie. I have a question.
Okay.
Somebody advised me to buy some no salt. It's potassium chloride, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was for. I believe it was in the nano coating of something specific. Has anybody used potassium chloride in their nano coating process?
Yeah, potassium is very good in the nano-coating process.
Well, we got feedback from someone here. Thank you.
It was not from me. Maybe Hannibal joined.
Anyone hear me now?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay.
Weak sound that we can hear.
Yeah, it's a little weak there, Brett, but it's good.
Are you going to talk or just microphone test now?
No, I just did a microphone test because before it wasn't working. I had to restart my Zoom.
Yeah, it's really low, hard to hear, at least at my end.
Sound is weak, but we can hear you.
Yeah, it's weak.
So replying to Jamie, potassium is welcome in the nano-coating process. Personally, I didn't use potassium chloride mixed to the caustic soda. I used potassium hydroxide mixed with sodium hydroxide. Mr. Keshe recommended that he used to put always some potassium into the nano-coating solution. So one of the ways is to add potassium chloride, which you can find it under the name of no salt, for instance, in some places.
Mr. Keshe is on the Skype meeting.
Yeah. Oh.
I've used the potassium chloride and the potassium hydroxide. The potassium chloride was fine with the mixing with the hydroxide. It was fine.
Hi, Sandor. Good morning.
Keshe.
Hi, Rick.
Hello, Mr. Keshe. How are you?
Good morning. Have you started yet?
Well, yes, we're just getting going here, and we just had a little demonstration and so on, and just getting going, actually.
Yeah, I don't have a camera.
Okay.
I mean, I can't see anything.
Let me see what you look like here. Let's bring that up.
Hello, Mayron.
Well, you've got an iPhone.
Coming up.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
coming up.
Yes, there's a screen share or something coming up. I think you need the. I think you
Hi,
want.
Brett.
I think you want the. Oh no, that's Shandor's sharing the screen here. But I think, Mr. Keshe, you've got the icon for. Oh, you just can't see maybe on the Zoom.
I can see the screen which Sander is sharing now.
Okay.
It just came up.
I see. I think you can see share screen, but maybe not the video. If there was a video, you didn't have one right now.
We're still having the teaching tomorrow.
Sure. Yes.
At 9 o'clock. Is it on the live stream or Zoom?
Well, we'll have it on Zoom and probably live stream at the same time, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do that now. I've got live stream on my Keshe Plasma Reactor group channel, and it's working. It's just a little crowded, let's say. Okay, this is one of your videos, isn't it, Shandor? And it's got the same coils in it, essentially, of the ones we just talked about that go on the positive and negative poles of the battery of a vehicle.
What is the report on this wire on the polarity of the battery of a car?
Hi, Mr. Keshe. This is John Anderson from Canada. I've been doing this now for about a week.
John, could you put your pictures back on for us so that Mr. Keshe might be able to see them?
I sure can. Let me back up a couple. There we go. One of the things that came to my mind when I was meditating on this was that there needs to be an alternate polarity within the plasma collectors when you put them on the batteries. And I don't know
what does that mean. Can you explain it that we all understand?
Yes, I will. I will talk about this. I don't know where it comes from. It's something that I just felt was correct. And looking at that, and also looking at Reiki and a number of different energetic healing modalities, Feng Shui, some of the older ancient practices, they suggest that an outward flow tends to be in a clockwise direction viewed from above as it's coming towards you, and an inward flow tends to go in a counterclockwise direction as it's going away from you as you're viewing it from the top. So I wound my two coils, as you see in the picture here, one in a clockwise spiral and one in a counterclockwise spiral. And I put the clockwise spiral on the negative pole of the battery and the counterclockwise spiral on the positive pole of the battery. If you were to view these as a pipe between the two poles of the battery, the spin remains the same. The actual direction of the spin, it's just one is coming out, one is going in. That's why it seems to be alternate polarities. And nano-coated them using a cold process, just wetting them down with caustic and letting them sit for a few hours and wetting them down over and over repeatedly over the course of about 4 days. I wound up with a very nice coating on these and encapsulated them in plastic. There you can see them encapsulated in plastic. I was going to have a bath of GANs in there. That's why the caps were so large. But I got impatient and decided that I wasn't going to do that on this time around. These were installed last week in a 2000 Ford Explorer, and immediately.
How did you install them? Where did you install them?
If you notice, if you notice, actually, that's not a very good picture. That's a better one. The coils have a pin. Part of the coil, there's a short section that's approximately 3/4 of an inch long. Parallel to the axis of the coil, perpendicular to its circumference, and that just slides down into the space on the top post battery clamp. I don't know if the European clamps are the same as we have in North America, but we have lead clamps and they have a little slot in them, and this fits really nicely down into that slot.
Mm-hmm.
So they just basically they just sit on the clamp. If you need to actually
So you
clamp
put the
them,
anti-clockwise on the positive and a clockwise on the negative.
yes.
Okay.
And immediately what we found was the truck ran so smooth, the engine ran so smooth that you couldn't feel it run. It was just like sitting there with the truck off and step on the gas and you go shooting down the road. Where this truck used to stumble at idle, it would cough and stumble at idle, and it would surge quite badly at really low RPM, like when you're backing out of a parking spot, it would surge quite badly. It eliminated that completely within 5 minutes of putting these on. I also have a second set that's on a friend's car, and I didn't tell him what to expect. I just said, this is an experiment. I don't want to tell you what they're going to do because I want a sort of a blind study here. Just put them on. There's no risk to your car. There's no risk to you. Run them for a little while and just tell me what you experience. And I'll get a report. I'll get the first report tomorrow from Lee, and he's running a 4-year-old Hyundai with these on there.
John, can you tell me if you did you actually undo one of the posts when you put these on, or did you just push them on basically and not undo any of the posts?
In both vehicles, we didn't have to undo anything.
Okay, because sometimes undoing a battery post will reset the computer and could alter the way the vehicle feels or whatever. But if that wasn't done, then that shouldn't be the case in that case.
Yeah, neither the Ford or the Hyundai.
But have you noticed any reduction in the fuel?
Well, the truck hasn't run long enough to actually find out. We drove it about an hour around town, and in that time, the needle didn't, it didn't move, but it didn't move before, so we can't really tell. One of the reasons why I gave it to Lee is because he does quite a bit of driving, and he'll use up $50 of fuel in a month pretty easily. So I'll be able to tell. And he's been following his car. He knows he gets 360 miles out of his tank. And it's been consistent since he bought the car. So if there's a change in what his consumption, he will notice right away.
Okay, let me explain something, because this is some part of the understanding, and tomorrow's teaching will go to it. A large number of people have moved suddenly from the beads and GANs into these coils. A lot of people see a shortcut, but in the process of shortcuts, you got to, or at least a lot of people, in what you've shown, you understood it. Hope we can extend the knowledge to the others, that when you do the anti-clockwise and you call it as on a positive point of the battery, and when you put it clockwise and you put it on the negative side, we got to understand this in a simple language, in a very, very simple language that everybody can extend the knowledge and development. The anti-clockwise is the gravitational, as you said. And this is what Professor Mal calls scalar waves. Because you're pulling, you increase the strength. So you add to the energy output of the car. With the negative side, where you put a clockwise, you take what is left smoothly back in. In a way, what you do, you push it from the positive, and you have put a sucking pump at the end on the other side, on the negative, if you understand the position. But you're pushing in the direction of the, what do you call it, your starter motor. The position comes, you have to create, as you said, alternative. The alternator does the job because it creates a field strength difference, which then this pushes to the what do you call it, to the camshaft. The process is to increase the absorption of the fields on the positive side of the battery, that by pushing it through, you don't convert electrical to mechanical, but you convert plasma into transmission plasma, what I call movement plasma. This is what it has to be understood. And then you'll see a lot of people like you will come up with the new gadgets and new ways of producing energy. This flow which you create by pushing on the positive side does not come actually from the battery. What you do, you add another energy source in series with the battery at the positive point.
Yes.
This is where a lot of people think it's going to be energy free or whatever. The idea you had to put a GaNs in the cup, in the plastic, is the way it has to be followed. You're very close to the next step.
Okay.
So
thank you.
You have to understand. A lot of people think free energy comes free and the motor goes and everything else. Is that you put the way we do in a current in a circuit. When you want to increase the current, which is the flow, the push, you put things in series, and when you want to increase the difference, you put down the potential on parallel. By putting this coil the way you've done, you create a absorption of fields from the environment. So now, in fact, your battery has a second battery joined it. But the second battery, the first battery produces AC and DC. Most of the problems of your clanking in your starter motor or your alternator or in your engine comes when the AC and DC of the battery are not in balance. This is something nobody has ever explained. In a couple of lectures I explained this, because as I explained in talks some times ago, that I was in a meeting in Frankfurt 3, 4, 5 years ago, and the guy showed the battery, and then he said he increased the current and the power, and he shows the battery is 12 volts and so many watts, and now he gets 49, it was 36, and he can increase the power. And I just asked him one question. I said, why don't you tell people that you're converting the AC section of the battery into a DC? And you're showing that. That's what it is. You put an inverter for the AC power. This is what most of the people do not realize. And this is, we have to emphasize till it comes home, is that a battery has both AC and DC, not a 12 volt DC. It's inherited in the structure of the plates. You create both, but no one ever uses it. Some manufacturers use the AC in the background without knowing it in the work of the alternator, the way they wind the alternator. So what you've done, you bring in the AC out of the battery, plus what the coil itself absorbs from the environment due to the flow of the AC. This is why you have a power addition. But on the other hand, what is lost, which is not used, and what is absorbed from the environment on the negative side, the way you put the coil at the point of the entry of the battery, you push back in. So your negative at that point is a gravitational field, and your positive becomes a magnetical field, where you actually winded, your winding was gravitational on the positive. You got to look in the direction of the flow of the plasma. So in fact, your plates in the battery become idle, and you convert the plasma inside the battery. The conversion is very, very smooth, very fast, and you'll find out your battery seems to be working better. But what you're doing, you're putting the battery on the charger through your negative point. And then through your positive, you're collecting on top of what it is back out plus from the environment. So you add a charger on the negative side, and then you add a source on the positive side. And all this transition, if you cut one of the wires in your cars, in the circuit of the cars, in next few days or whatever, you will find that all the wires are nano-coated, all black. We've seen it, Arman and Marco and I, we open and we've seen it. So when you cut the wires open, when you take the plastic skin away, you will see the wires totally black, where you never nano-coated the wires. And all the circuitry of the car gets nano-coated over time. That's why it needs time to become more and more efficient. And so what happens, your alternator literally become useless, and your starter motor become useless. What you deliver is energy which goes directly to the camshaft and converts the plasma motion into mechanical conversion. But your use of fuel is due to the fact that the engine is running. Due to the structure of the engine, it still sucks whatever comes up. So in the next couple of days, there's a test running around in the background where we take the fuel tank out. After the car is run for a few days, we take the fuel tank out, and to show that the fuel is absolutely not needed.
I'm curious. This truck is fuel injected, and the computer is going to read the speed of the crankshaft itself and set its fuel consumption to hold that speed up there. If I'm getting
yes, but there is a minimum. You know, and I know that all
Okay.
our cars, especially if you're after 2002, Rick can tell you, in most of the cars, you have a regulator. There's a minimum running of the shaft. There's a maximum that you cannot go over, especially electric cars. But BMW does it, Mercedes does it, Honda does it. So they control the speed, the maximum and the minimum of the shaft turn. If you disconnect the fuel, then you will see it, because your system has to have a minimum show that the engine is running.
Right.
And to that extent, calls for the fuel from the tank. So you'll still be using fuel due to the rotation of the camshaft.
Okay,
This is
so
what we are observing. Let me just finish, because I have to go to move the lab in next 20 minutes. We are moving the lab from Trani to Barletta today at 8 o'clock, 8:30. So this is where you have to watch. Don't look at the fuel consumption, because your fuel consumption, unless you take your fuel tank, is going to be there to the minimum. But the way we see it, maybe I'm sure you all can expand on it, especially Rick, with the knowledge he has in mechanics, that you have to run the car, I think, for a few days, that all the wiring are nano-coated or become plasmatically connected. And then I think even yesterday we were in some discussion, teaching discussion with some people, then you will find out even your camshaft becomes nano-coated in a very strange way, but plasmatically. I tried to explain this tomorrow in the teaching in respect to the solid matter and plasma interaction. Because now that we open this principle, we have to understand it. And then we go back into the teaching of the structure of the field force motion in the way the field sets in the structure of the battery.
Mr. Keshe,
Pardon. Yes?
You've mentioned the camshaft several times, but I'm wondering if you mean the crankshaft. The crankshaft being the main part where the pistons and the rods connecting the pistons are connected to the crankshaft, where the flywheel is, where the starter engages, and so on. Whereas the camshaft is connected to the crankshaft with a gear or chain system or whatever, and it runs the camshaft runs the valves. It makes the valves open and shut on the engine. So I'm thinking you might mean the crankshaft rather than the camshaft. I'm wondering if that's the case.
You call it the crankshaft, the one which rotates the wheels.
Yeah, the main shaft would be the crankshaft. So if we can get clear on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm not a mechanic.
Right, that's why I want to clarify so that the
problem.
mechanics out there understand you. So
I understand. So what happened? In so many ways, your whole plasmatic field forces, due to the potential difference, convert themselves into mechanical field force. But because originally the way you showed your path through the electric connection, they follow the path and then they take over time to the conversion. This is what we see. So in next day or two, we know a car is going to be disconnected from the fuel once it starts running, and then we'll see what happens to it. The same principle applies in conversion from AC to DC wherever plasma decides. We see. Pardon?
You just said the word there I was just thinking about, which is, you said where plasma decides. And I'm wondering, like, in terms of how you describe these systems that are almost slowly being taken over by the plasma, and does it know to sort of encourage certain things to happen, like the wheels to turn smoother, the gears to interact, and so on?
No, it creates a
plasmatic potential.
No. Let me explain to you. Let me put it in a way. You know, we've seen the plasma where wherever is 120 goes at 120, where is 12 goes at 12, when it's 240 goes at 240, when it's 50 hertz goes 50, when it's 60 goes 60.
Okay.
The extent of knowledge has to be that it does the same thing in the mechanical side.
Oh, okay.
Right. Well, one thing that I always refer back to was a movie that made a big impression on me when I was younger, called Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where...
Oh, I've seen that one.
Yeah, it was great fun. And I remember the part where...
Don't give your age away, Rick.
Well, I'm sorry. I've just had a major birthday lately and feel happy to be alive at this point. But anyway, back at that movie, they had the part where there was a kid in the kitchen, I believe it was, and the mother and kid in this farmhouse. And suddenly there was sort of a shaking going on, and the lights were turning on and off, and I think the refrigerator door opened and shut. And one of the things I always remember is there was a screw that unscrewed itself during all this commotion that was going on. So it reminds me that this thing that we are attempting to get our heads around, that's called plasma, is something that can work in that manner. It can do stuff like turn a screw out. It's a plasmatic magnetic field that when it twists around something could very much do something like that if it was, you know, very powerful. So in that sense, I'm wondering if that's sort of what you mean, and that different systems will be affected. Are you still there, Mr. Keshe?
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead.
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, hello, can
in
you
a
hear
way,
us?
you're not wrong. In a way, you're not wrong. You're very correct. And in a way, this is how things happen. But I add to this in a teaching where you will understand a very new phenomenon. And this new phenomena is that your wish runs the car too.
Yes.
This is the social structure which we come to, and at the moment, if we discuss it to people who don't understand, it's beyond their comprehension. This is what I taught from the beginning, that your wish is your command, and some people don't understand it, is, as we said, so we did it with Arman and Marco in controlling the reactor. Partially in time, when you convert all this to a plasma system, what you wish comes with it, but you already have started it. In a car, when you sit, you wish to go, whatever, you have already started as part of your wish. This is something which has to come to open, and this is what we said from the beginning. When you go into the plasma application, you wish, and your wish is your command.
Yes,
And
if my next
this way, pardon?
If my next experiments work, I should be able to demonstrate that. But you've answered a couple of questions without realizing it. That's going to help me with my next experiments.
Don't forget, I see your soul. I don't see your face. I know your thoughts. I understand a lot of people are doing a lot of work around this, but this is the next step in the development of the technology in the space technology. In the coming 6 weeks, I will teach very heavily on Thursdays. We go blind to whatever bullshit is going around, people who are trying to divert attention into bringing into reality what it is. Nobody is adding to the knowledge. All this needs to be added the correct way. And the people who are the time wasters will spend their time wasting and stop adding. You will see how we will teach you how to manage even your cars through your thinking, not through your cars. And you have started it, for example, and we expand on it because now you're getting ready to see that part of the development. In pieces, we have put it out over past year, 2 years, and all those pieces are going to come together. The power, the energy of the system, conversion of the plasma to a mechanical system. You're not doing, let me explain to you something. I was explaining this to some scientists in the past few days. What you have to realize is that plasmatic magnetic field of the solar system converts in a specific position into the mechanical rotation of the Earth. There is no motor. This is what I've been trying to teach you for past year, 2 years. Now you're getting to it. Now you should then be in a puzzling for you how the power of the motor, electric power, is converting into motion, which you can't understand. In fact, you are repeating what is done in the universe. Now for the first time you see it. The power, gravitational magnetic field, converts into rotation, physical rotation of the planet. Gravitational magnetic field of the Earth.
Oh, it's Eugene's guy. Oh, he had his mic open. We had some noise.
Okay. So now you see now it shouldn't be strange to you. How can you explain the mechanical, electrical power from your battery with your nano-coated wires converts into mechanical? Now you're dealing with plasma, and this is what I try to bring to you slowly to understand. How does the power of the plasma of the sun convert into the rotation of the sun and the rotation of the solar system? There's no motor. The field forces, the way you put the positive and negative, you have created that difference where at the point of interface is the engine which creates it to the rotation. So if you look at it, your positive point in the battery is the gravitational field of the sun, and your negative is magnetical field. And these two fields have to convert somewhere from one to another. And that point of conversion leads to the mechanical rotation. That leads to rotation. This is what we see as the rotation of the plasma. This is what in the teachings, we'll start teaching to understand. The potential difference. But now with the engine, you pinpoint where you want the potential difference to be. And that change from magnetical and gravitational to magnetical leads to the rotation of the motor. Conversion into mechanical rotation as you see it. Now you understand how your plasma system wire creates physical movement, because you see it as the Earth, but you don't understand it. And now when you see it in your car, it puzzles you.
Well, thank you very, very much. That was an excellent explanation, and it certainly opened up a lot of doors.
It has to. It has, because this is part, you're all in the infancy of knowledge, and if you understand it from the beginning, then you understand a lot of things. Where does the rotation of the plasma come from? Where does the rotation of the solar system come from? Where does the rotation of the universe come from? At the point of the interaction of the gravitational magnetical, it's like a potential difference. You need a mechanism to disperse the energy or to use energy. All you're doing the same thing now with the two leads.
And a similar thing with my bicycle as well.
The same.
Yes. Except I'll be using my own GANs as the energy source primarily.
So many as a bird flies. This is part of the teaching. So you should not be puzzling whether the mechanical flow comes. This is the crankshaft or is the crankshaft. It's irrelevant. You have created electrical flow up to the camshaft or a crankshaft.
Yes.
From there on, there is a back connection which comes to the motor, it comes back to the battery. But now isolated in this process, conversion of the gravitational to magnetical, magnetical to gravitational, the field has to be dissipated. It becomes the rotation of the wheel. The same thing with the sound system.
Just for clarity's purpose, I realize this is a kind of a step backwards. Alex, when he put the system on his car, he one of the things he mentioned was the steering got very, very light and the car felt like it was on rails. It steered really, really well. Would this be a function of that plasma infusing the entire body of the car?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
There's actually been several reports
let
of
me
people
explain.
with
Let me explain something.
similar things.
Because I have to get in the car to drive. I've got to go to the center. Let me explain something. While the plasma flows through the car, yeah, now you have a system which is both mechanical, gravitational, dynamic. Now it has to show a response to the Earth gravitational magnetical dynamic too.
Yes.
Now, in response to your question or what you discussed, you know how we were going to show a flying car.
So it is essentially the same process as the flying car, just a slightly more crude system. Well, I shouldn't say crude, less controllable system, because you really have no
Very controllable. Just I'll show you how to control it in the coming time.
Okay. Okay.
Once you start using this battery in the background, or as we are developing in the other side, a new version of it, you will see very soon. Your engines are, or your rotating engines, one of the best things for your flying car.
Mr. Keshe?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? This is Robert. Does the plasma also affect the spark plug and the spark properties in the car?
They're useless. They're useless. They're not operational. And sometimes, yes, you do. If you know how to control them, you can control directional flow as well. I'll explain this in the future.
But as far as the car's spark plug and the way the spark, does the spark properties get affected, which could affect the engine performance?
They're useless. They're not applicable.
Okay.
Once the system is up and running and the car is infused with the plasma, you can unplug the fuel injectors completely.
We are taking that. I told you, if you go back in the teaching of the past, when I had the police of Belgium on top of the car, I showed them, there is a video somewhere, maybe Rick can dig it out. We showed the tank in the back of the car, inside. The fuel tank has been taken out. You don't need those, they become irrelevant.
Yeah, so for testing purposes, for the next few steps, if anyone wants to do this with their battery, it would be a simple matter to put switches into your trigger leads for your fuel injectors, so you can turn the fuel injectors off at will. And
let me explain.
Everything out.
Let me explain one thing, and then I have to drive, and we speak while I'm driving. If you use gas, which is liquid, you will find some problems. If where you put your coil and you put the plastic cap, separate the copper, nano-coated, from the gas, that it doesn't touch it, but it absorbs its energy, you can use a wet gas.
Oh.
But if you put the coil directly in touch with the gas, you got to use a dry gas. Because the water will play duality as a short circuit, as a water in one system, and then as a gas in the other, like a human body.
Mentioned earlier, someone mentioned using silicone spray on the nanomaterial to separate it. Would that be adequate, or does it have to be an actual barrier?
Test and try. It'll come with trials. We don't know.
They used silicone shoe spray repellent stuff. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I've used silicone shoe waterproofing on my nano-coated plates, and I still have fairly good results with my GANs collections.
As you know, we are now the key for the cover. I'm leaving. I've got to get some things. Just 1 second, please. It's the key for the cover.
We got to stop asking this man questions.
No, but the problem you have is you were in a schizophrenic condition between matter and GANs. Now you have a schizophrenic condition between GANs and the plasma. You understand?
Yes.
We're starting to see a common theme here, yes.
So now you have to start separation in the GANs and the plasma, and then look at the behavior of the plasma in a free condition. Can you pick the dog up, please? So you have to, once you make that separation, and then you understand then you understand the process much easier. You understand the totality much easier. Then you work the way the solar system, the universe works, and a lot of these ambiguities will resolve. It's something which comes in time with you. You will learn in time, and then you don't have these questions. It becomes very simple, very straightforward, that all these processes are in a plasma. But because of the way you've been brought up educationally and otherwise, you do not see it. And to you is a problem. And this is where I try to make the difference, to add to the knowledge that you all understand and read from, as we say in English, from the same hymn sheet. That we all speak in the same language. That we all follow the same process. This is where the problem will be solved once you start understanding these things and you start working on the same principle, by the same rules. You are you are half matter, half GANs, and then nano, and then GANs. And now, for those who developed further or who came later, without going through the process of conversion and just pick up on the GANs and the plasma, you won't have this problem. And you will see, you'll walk through it with no problem. Where a lot of people who came in through the GANs have a problem and will find a problem. Just give me 1 second. Talk amongst yourself. I've got to find something before I leave, please.
Well, it definitely has got me thinking about this new system for my bicycle now. I've got a way better idea of what I'm doing.
Chris, may I ask something? Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm concerned about I don't know who was telling that he sprayed some silicone on the nano-coated plate for the GANs process, and he was succeeding, that it protects the nano-coating to wear out, or how it works?
When I did mine, the nano coating lasted a very, very long time. The first time I did it, I didn't coat the plates and we wore out in a few hours.
Oh. So you just spray it with this silicone spray. It's a thin layer you put all around the plate.
That's what I did, yes. And I used a shoe repellent, a shoe waterproofer for work boots and tennis shoes and leather and that sort of thing, rather than like a silicone sealant. I because it comes out much thinner and get right into all of the little nooks and crannies and crevices, and it worked quite well. I was very happy with the results.
Oh, it's very interesting. So, but you polish or do something after the nano-coating process? Do you smooth the surface first or prepare the surface before spraying it? Or just as it comes from the nano-coating process, you just spray it with this silicone and that's it?
I just washed the surfaces and let them dry. I should mention, I also did the zinc plates as well. And that eliminated the zinc from deteriorating quite so fast as well.
Can you repeat that again, please? What you did?
I used a silicone shoe waterproofer to seal the nano-coated and my zinc plate, so they didn't degrade as quickly.
You use the shoe silicone water sealer.
Yes. Should I not have?
No, I'm getting enlightened by your knowledge.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So easy to do, because what happened now, we are testing number of these things for different applications. Like at the moment, there's a problem with the water dissemination. As you know, years ago, I was involved with Samsung, the desalination people, as part of the technology. And the process, they use a lot of energy in that process. And part of it, now we see the total eradication of the use of any energy through the use of GaNs materials. And what we do, I'll explain this. This is one of the systems which hopefully will show in Tehran in the coming months. As part of the processing, reprocessing, energy cleanup, will be shown hopefully, if you get it the right way, in a conference in Tehran or in an exhibition in Tehran. This process is important, and the way you explain it, it makes it easier in coating, because we do a silicone coating, but shoe polish is a silicone shoe polish is one way of doing it. As a spray, it's a good alternative. Finally.
Oh, sorry, Rick. I wanted to show on the camera exactly the product that I was using.
Let me open the window on the live stream so I can see what you got there. It's a heavy duty water repellent, kiwi spray stuff for tough silicone protection. Right.
Camp dry.
Camp dry. Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I know there's several brands of that kind of stuff, so that's a good hint.
I think the important part is make sure you get stuff that'll work on canvas and leather and all as many broad and varied surfaces as you can find.
Yeah, we can barely hear you there, but we caught that. Yep.
Am I talking in the wrong side of the mic?
Sounds like the mic's barely working. Yeah.
I can put on this mic. That's probably not any better.
The process is,
Maybe
as I said, you understood fully, is that you deal with the fields and not with the wires.
Yes.
And this is what we have to bring in, because we're getting so many new people coming in because of the things which are happening in the teachings, and what a lot of people are coming with a different insight into the technology. We are not dealing with the matter state, but because of the matter state, we create the channels of the flow of plasma, where in the universe is free till it decides. And if people understand this, people who come around us to comprehend this fully, then most of our problems will be solved. They see physical connections, but they don't realize that these physical connections, like the wires and motors and the rest, are all part of a plasma structure. Because in totality, if you look, the body of the car is made of metals, and you connect somewhere, your wiring is connected to the body, is earth to the body of the car. So in so many ways, the frame of the car becomes part of the plasma of the reactor. It becomes part of the spaceship.
Yes.
And if you increase the level of the fields absorbed at the point of the battery, where now you created a condition of GANs, or flow of plasma, now you understand that your whole car is part of the structure. Where up to now you were looking for point by points, wire by wire, connection by connection. This is something which slowly has to be added to the understanding. You're looking at the wire, which the way you winded it up to from the battery, clockwise, anti-clockwise, you now have set a path. But this path encircles in it the engine, the drive.
I think we lost you, Mr. Keshe. He might come back, and it's he's traveling now. Sorry,
the body of the car, the wheel is not limited to the battery, which is rotted in the car. Hello.
Yeah, we missed a sentence or so. We missed your last sentence. You broke up there, Mr. Keshe.
Yeah, what I said, your car, the body of the car, the frame of the car now is part of the plasma of the whole structure. This is something you got to add to the knowledge. Just because you didn't know it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. As you created the plasma, with the wires you dictated the direction of the rotation of the plasma. But now, once the plasma starts going through the car, everything which is within the structure of the car becomes part of the reactor, part of gathering energy. As I said, even if you had a rotten orange in the car, which part of the process is a gas, this energy becomes part of the circle. I explained this in a very crude way with Alex, when he said he put some CO2 gas in the fuel tank. And I said the system is taking from the tank the energy.
So now you're getting, I told you the teaching is going too fast and so fast. And a lot of people will jump in a later date. They have to understand there's no magic into it. In the universe, let's say in the solar system, even on our Earth, energy is everywhere, moisture is everywhere, till it comes down as rain, and then it has to be collected that by rivers find itself to ocean. So your wires and the nano-coating are the rivers. The energy is all over the car. Everywhere you see inside it, so you're collecting it. So now you're putting everything into a river. And it's the easiest way I can explain. So the nano-coating you created does create the first point of reference. Where to gather to come in, where to gather to go out. We show a new development we started yesterday, a couple of days ago. We will not show it till it's fully tested, which changes everything, even in the running of the car. If you understand it, if a lot of you with a sense of the knowledge of nanomaterial and the GANs move to plasma, you will find you can fly your cars within instant.
Mr. Keshe, would the word biomimicry be accurate in this discussion?
What is a biomimicry? Explain to us. I'm ignorant to it.
I don't have the exact definition from Wikipedia, but it's something to do with replicating what nature does.
Yes, I presume, yes. But we do it plasma mimicry, maybe you can call it.
Yes.
Yes, because it's not biological, it's a plasmatic. We are mimicking what the universe does, but now we show the channels. And that's why it's so successful. Because in the universe, it takes millions of years for lines to connect that they can create a river of plasma that at the end, by collecting all these plasmas, like putting the rivers into ocean, creates ocean. When these rivers of plasma gather and push enough together material in one place, leads to the creation of the solar system, the star. There is no difference. There is no difference. But as I keep on repeating, in one of the slow shot movements, we saw how the fields flow, how the gas flow in the box. What do you call it? We had a slow shot movement done, or fast movement shot done some time ago, a year ago, which was shown on the teachings. So now, instead of waiting for the fields to find their way to make the river to end up in the ocean, to create a matter, a state of a star, your battery becomes your, what do you call it, center of the star. And your wires are the rivers in and out to keep the balance so it doesn't overflow. And the beauty with it is when you switch your engine off, you separate the system flow in a very nice way. In a very nice way. The new keys for ignition, car ignition, which is getting developed, they will show you this. Your ignition keys in the coming time will be 2 pinpoint insertion. It won't be a turning insertion. I showed the key in the Thursday's teaching, last Thursday's teaching. But there is a lot of understanding needed for the structure of the matter as a plasma. And then I think a lot of confusion will go away. I was thinking to do this tomorrow because we still have a lot of people who consider matter as something which is not magnetic. If we start looking at matter as a tight structure pack of plasma and magnetic field, then we will see huge difference in understanding.
Yes, I've been of the mind for several years now that what we perceive as the matter state is just that, a perception. It's not the reality of the state. What we're perceiving are field boundaries, event horizons of energetic events, and that's where I've been trying to reconcile what you're teaching us and what we're discovering ourselves. And it definitely seems to be fairly accurate, because so far the things that I've done using that as a core concept have been fairly successful.
I think everybody has the knowledge. It's just accepting that there is more to it than we thought, or we need to understand a little bit more. This is the problem, because if you look at the solid matter, it's still a plasma with a stronger, what you call Coulomb's barrier. That's all it is. It's much stronger Coulomb's barrier, and given the strength of the environment, then you see it still is a plasma. The problem is there is too much what I call disturbing points in understanding the totality because of the knowledge of the past, and this takes time. In the coming time, children don't have this problem because they'll be brought up in the understanding of, like we talk about the solid, liquid, and gas. The children, especially when we start the School of the Children in October here in Italy, we explain 6 states of matter, 3 as a matter and 3 as the universal matter, where you have a solid, gas, and liquid, where we have nano, gas, and plasma. And each one influences the other according to their strength. And this is a part of the teaching we have to do. Then this confusion doesn't exist. But if you look, everything which now you report and receive from other scientists is a natural process. Your car should be flying. If you use this nano-coating materials, or the way you're putting gas into the back of the container, you will find your car should be on the stage of hovering. But in a way, as Alex says, the steering is much easier. I'll explain this. We are developing now with some people around the foundation in the background, new technologies in different aspects. In a way, the way I look at it, in the coming months, when you sit in your car to drive, you receive the energy you need for daily use. Your car becomes your feeder, and every day your body will be balanced through this understanding that you don't get sick. If you, let's say, you start the process of cancer last night at home, you sit in the car automatically. This is inevitable. It's coming up, but you are doing it the hard way.
Mr. Keshe, did you say that the battery's negative is the gravitational, or was it the positive was the gravitational?
I think let the gentleman who understand to explain it easy, let him just explain how he winded his coil.
When I wound the coils,
hello.
When I wound the coils, I didn't understand the concept that the gravitational and the magnetical fields had specific spin directions. What I was looking at was the matter state flow of the battery, the electrons flow from the positive to the negative. When we're looking in the ancient teachings, ancient healing modalities, a field that is entering a system tends to travel in the clockwise direction, and a field exiting a system tends to travel in the counterclockwise direction. That's where I got the direction of those coils from. What you had explained, which answered a lot of questions that I didn't even realize I had, was that the gravitational field will tend to travel in the counterclockwise direction, and the magnetical field will tend to travel in the clockwise direction. So, being that, it's still having the coils in opposite directions, along with the matter state flow of out of positive, in of negative, and the ancient teachings that I relied on, it all still maintains a balanced system, which also explains why people who have tried it the other way got horrible results, because they were constantly fighting that interface between the plasma and the matter flow state.
At the moment, I'm doing some private teaching with some people regarding these things in the background on a daily basis. And you spend a couple of hours a day, or at least an hour or 2 hours a day, going into the fine detail of these things. And in time, the team will become the new teachers. I'm just closely every day working with them to bring it up to a scratch that they are highly knowledgeable in this field, to explain these things the way they see it, both in the matter state and in the plasma state. We need this new understanding with what I put on the table last week. Up to now, you had a problem understanding the nano and then the problem with the GaNs. Now this plasma transformation and plasma channeling becomes the next step. It's like we have entered like in the third year of the graduate, what do you call it, the school. So then we can build on it, because then you can follow the way you wind it up your system. If you understand it further, you can lead directly at the battery point in production of anything you like. But a lot of people don't understand it, so it becomes like a magic. But as people extend the knowledge, I explain more and more. And this walking away from what you call it, GaNs into plasma control, then you have to understand the next step. Choose and understand the totality, the way operation done in the universe, and bring the GaNs and nano together the way it has to be done. And then bring the, what do you call it, the plasma together. And then you work in a system which is the way the universe works. At the moment, I see a sporadic knowledge people using and doing, and destruction and which is created in the background has put a lot of people with the knowledge wrong-footed. But it's good, because they're not supposed to be there, because they don't participate in any development. Self-ego has become bigger. But if you understand the way you go from solid to liquid and to the gas, and then if you create the right condition, gas becomes solid again, you are now in the same process. You go from nano to GaNs to plasma, and then you go back to nano as you like. There is no difference. But now you play in the plasma state, the strength, not in the matter strength. then you understand whatever you do, then you have to understand where there's an interface between the nano and a matter strength. Is that the liquid state as a gas state or as a solid state? What will the outcome be? What about if you have a GANS and then you have an interface with a matter and a GANS and a nano and a gas or a liquid state or a solid state? Or then you see it with a plasma. That's why, as I said at the beginning of these talks, it was strange for you how come the plasma creates a rotation in the crankshaft, because you don't see the totality. Where now you have an interaction of plasma with the solid state matter of the condition in conjunction with some vapor which is from the gas itself. So you got to start opening your eyes, and literally I think somewhere one of our animators have to draw animation that it shows the interaction of 6 combination, not 3 combination. Then most of these problems, you just look what happens when GANS with the gas interacts, where the GANS with the nanomaterial and let's say gas interacts. Then you see we are not out of line with what happens in the universe. This is the confusion. Next few weeks we try to sort it out. Hello?
Oh, I didn't want to monopolize the channel. I was hoping somebody else would.
We were all tuned in there. So you mentioned this six states of matter, you could say, but they're not really states of matter.
We consider things a state of fields interaction.
States of fields interaction. Okay.
Then
and
doesn't matter. You call it solid, you call it gas, you call it whatever. Oh my God, these guys are already here. Gentlemen, I have to go off. It's the lab getting emptied and tiny.
Great.
So I'll come back to it when it's finished, yeah?
Best of luck to you, Mr. Keshe, with all your work there in the lab.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, that was a nice visit. Helped clarify some things. Any comments or ideas about that?
That was noisy.
Yeah, I have
just trying
ideas.
to mute Mr. Keshe's audio. I think it's okay now. Go ahead, sorry, Emmanuel.
Oh, it's fine. Now that we've gotten into the rotational side of the coils, counterclockwise, magnetical, and gravitational clockwise, if we look at the interaction of these fields, then we can create a parallel type structure where, say, a coil in a certain winding around another coil at a certain distance with a certain winding, around another coil with a certain distance and winding, the interaction between these field forces to create the material and condition that we're looking for without physical contact. We've already seen some of that already, but there's a way to do it to create GANs even without even putting the materials in the water. We've seen that with the plates outside. But if we understand this rotational aspect, we should be able to do more with it, if you get my drift. I think looking at the rotations of the different planets and how they interact might lead to some understanding as well.
I don't believe what he was describing in the rotational aspect is inherent in the plasma itself, only in the conditions the plasma finds itself in. So if you set up a plasmatic field around a system and you want it to rotate, it will rotate. If you want it to move linearly, it'll move linearly. That's that. At least that's the gist that I got from what he was describing.
I don't think I'm talking so much about the rotation of the plasma. That might have been incorrect. It's as the plasma travels through a channel, what you were saying, it's like if you're standing beside a riverbank and it hits a heavy curve, there's a bit of a spray off to the side. So there's some residual fields that go in one direction or the other depending on the flow of the channel itself. And if we put multiple rivers or channels in a certain pattern, then we can get the residual of these to radiate out and then collect in another channel itself. Does that make sense?
To some extent, yeah, but I'm trying to reconcile that with the view of the solar system. That would almost suggest that the fields on one side of the planet in relation to the sun to the or say to the left side in relation to the sun to the right side in relation to the sun are unequal.
Yeah, have you ever seen the plasmatic sphere of the planet Earth itself? Due to the condition, the compression is different. Plus, you have different gravitational rotations of the bodies themselves.
Yes, I'm wondering. One of the things that comes to my mind when I saw that is how much of that is generated by the rotation after the fact.
Yes, the rotation is a result of the entirety of the condition, but it's also something to look at. The entirety of that condition is also having an effect on the entirety of another condition. You look at this thing with Venus is rotating in a certain way parallel to the two bodies beside it. There's something to be understood there. And the composition of the gases in the different planets, they tell a story of the elemental table. And if you can mimic these same plasmatic field forces on a gravitational level and a resultant totality level, then you can create the same materials just like the universe or the solar system creates materials.
Okay. Not quite the direction that I've been pushed into going the last while, but
yes. Thank you specifically for pointing out what you did with the battery. Also, the gravitational. It's negative to negative, positive to positive.
Well, one's in, one's out, and the maggrav in, one's out.
Well, no, I mean, if you put the magnetical around the positive, you put the counterclockwise around the positive of the battery. The positive of the battery is pulling in, but the magnetical is radiating out. So,
which is exactly opposite of what the electrons themselves are doing.
Right. So you create a traffic jam of electrons, and that's when you're dealing with plasma.
Well,
you're only using what you need.
I'm not viewing the plasma as the electrons. What I'm creating is counterflow of dissimilar forces to maintain a balance within the totality of the system, because I know the universe seeks balance. So if you create a system that is unbalanced, it's going to pull itself apart. You need to have a balanced system. So anywhere where there's something coming out, something has to be going back in at the same place to maintain that balance.
Right. All right. I like that observation. Thank you.
John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm having problem with my microphone. Looks like I was talking, but no one could hear me. Since the negative of the battery is connected to the chassis as ground, and you have that as with your spin direction as seems like the magnetic
Yes.
Does that have, would that have any of the effects that the chassis being the magnetic and everything, all the other wires that are connected to the positive of the battery being the gravitational? I'm wondering what kind of an interaction that will create within both the electrical circuitry and at the mechanical level, because the engine, I think the engine is isolated from the chassis with some rubber bushings, I think, but I think there's also connection to the engine, right?
The engine is always grounded to
grounded
battery
also, right?
in a negative ground system, or grounded to the battery on the positive terminal on a positive grounding system, which some English cars have in the old days.
Yeah. Yeah, the interaction in the fields is going to be really complex. Anywhere where you have a flow of a singular form of plasma, you're going to have a corresponding flow of that opposite plasma to balance that out again. Now, if it's going to be flowing within the eventual nano coating within that particular conductor, I don't know. I would think that you would have a one field flowing within the nano-coated structure and one field flowing around that nano-coated structure in the opposite direction to maintain that balance. So it's going to be, I suppose, if you were to just take a photograph of it somehow, Kirlian photography or whatever, I'm sure we'll come up with something, it would look very, very chaotic, but it would still be a very balanced system. I think it's going to seek a balance regardless of if you have one single wire on the gravitational and everything else is magnetic. I still think it's going to seek that balance.
And what is the shape that that balance normally takes in fields that from a source? It's
well, in free plasma, it's a sphere.
That's right. So it'd be interesting if that is the case. Maybe that sphere grows from that seed of the battery terminal act and grows into the whole vehicle, essentially, encasing it in a plasmatic sphere. It's a very interesting concept.
Well, that's kind of what I'm envisioning as Miran was talking about it.
Yeah.
Also with my bicycle, I haven't figured out where I'm going to put the collectors yet on the bike. Probably on the rear axle.
And on the handlebars?
Well, I may have some on the handlebars to actually connect me with the system to use my GANs as the core energy source.
What about an electric bicycle?
No. This is a plain old pedal bike. Electrical bicycle, yeah. Put the coils on your wires. But this is a plain pedal bike. The only electrical system on this bike is a little magnet on my front wheel and a pickup coil running a speedometer. I want to see if I can transcend the electrical in this instance and go directly into infusing the entire bicycle with a balanced field. And if that is the case, I should be able to just think faster and go down the road.
And where are you putting John, where are you putting the coils?
I don't know yet. I'm thinking, right, first instinct would be on either side of the rear wheel axle. One on one side, one on the other, or perhaps two on each side, a balanced system on each side. In opposite directions. So I have the gravitational on the inside, the magnetical on the outside.
Here's an interesting idea for the bicycle. Imagine the bicycle with three, say, I don't know if three is correct, but I'm thinking like 3 reactors or 3 coil combinations embedded in the front wheel, in other words, attached to the spokes of the front wheel, and 3 more in the rear wheel. And then you've got three rotating reactors in each wheel, which are very, it seems like an interesting way to go, to have both the spiral coil and rotated at the same time.
You mean the reactor attached to the tire?
Well, yeah. Say having a coil, a nano-coated coil, attached to equidistant on the spokes of the wheel, three of them in different parts of the wheel, spaced equally apart, and then they are rotating with the wheel and creating their own rotational space there, basically.
So it will be the rotational will be in the front, so the flow will go to the magnetical at the back.
Quite possibly, I don't know.
Well, that's a good idea.
If you had a single coil, looking at it from one side, it would be a magnetical attractor. Looking at it from the other side, it would be really, really easy to do that with a spherical type reactor and put little wind vanes on it so that the wind, the air as it's traveling around in that circle actually causes the reactor to spin. That would be a simple thing to do.
Oh, good idea.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. That's an interesting way to do it too. Of course, you could have a little spinning fan thing that spins the reactor just sitting on your front handlebars too.
Yeah.
Or on the top of your head.
Yes, a propeller with a reactor that spins that it actually causes you to levitate. That would be really something. People think that little propeller makes you lift, and well, you don't know the real secret.
Because the most powerful gas in the body is the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
When this sucker hits 88 miles an hour, you're going to see some serious shit.
I will pay to see the people's face when you are riding your bike with your reactor in your, over your head and all those spirals around and floating in the air.
30 feet off the ground? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, what movie was that?
E.T.
The Flying Nun, I think. She flies her bicycle.
Also E.T. Go Home, or that, remember the 70s. Yeah.
Well, we all know that we have a deadline here by, when is it? Is it September 15th or October 15th? In Back to the Future, where in that older movie, they actually had a date of 2015 as when they went into the future, where they had the hoverboard, and the hovering car, the DeLorean. So
I think it's the 21st of the month, not the 15th.
Of September or October?
One of the two.
I think it's September. So September 21st, perhaps, 2015. Which would be, I think it was all in dates like 07, 21, 2015 or something. We'll have to
it's
check
October
into that.
October 21st, 2015. Just Googled it.
Good. We have an extra month there. That's good. So that's our deadline, October 21st, 2015 for lift. And where is that incredible noise? And hopefully with a DeLorean car, that would be preferable. I think we have to find a gutted DeLorean. It's got to be cheap, no engine, no transmission required, just wheels, maybe not even wheels.
Well, I did a quick search about 3 weeks ago, and I found 6 on the planet, so we may have a hard time finding one.
Really? There's a DeLorean dealer in Europe, but they may only have one at a time. Yes, we had one 10 years ago that we sold, but we're still open.
Well, Moran said that the Tech Foundation has purchased the Opel plant in Germany. Perhaps we can reconfigure the Opel GT.
Yeah, that was the deal that was maybe going to happen, but it didn't. So they didn't actually purchase it. But that kind of thing can happen. That's what people like Elon Musk has done recently. He purchased a automotive plant and turned it into largest battery making facility or something. No, I think that was one of his manufacturing facilities, actually.
John, one question. When you place the coils on the battery, you just push it or you open a little bit the contact of the battery and then tight it again?
Either way, whatever works. When I put it on the truck, we just slid it down into the little slot in the lead battery clamp, and it fit really, really nicely. And
Okay.
If it's really sloppy, if your clamp is kind of wore out, or if there isn't a good spot to put it, you can just loosen the clamp up a little bit, jam the wire in there, and then tighten the clamp up again, and that'll keep it from bouncing around or possibly falling out if you've got a lot of space above your battery.
Oh, okay. And when you see it from the top, once you install it, for example, the positive coil, once you see it from the top, you will see the counterclockwise, right?
Yeah, looking down from the top, the positive is counterclockwise, the negative is clockwise.
Okay, just to be sure. Thank you.
And if you were to actually, with your finger, if you just draw a clockwise spiral and then keep that spiral going and move it to the other side, just like a pipe, so the same direction, it's just the only difference is your view of it. That's why they're different.
Oh, okay. Well, when you see both from the top, of course, you will see the difference.
Yes, one's coming out, one's going in, but they're all the same direction.
Yeah, I see. Well, what is not really clear for me is how the plasma decides where to convert in a mechanical force, but maybe we need more data about that, because Mr. Keshe was saying that the intention drives the plasma, right?
Partly, yes. And this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was originally experimented with in a very, very different form down in Australia 15 or 20 years ago with a device called a Joe cell, a J-O-E.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah, I know Joe cell, yeah.
And I intuitively inside me says it's exactly the same stuff. It's just collected in a different way.
Yeah, it never came out the way he did it.
Could you spell the name of that? What was it called again? A Joule cell?
Joe.
J-O-E.
Julia Oscar Echo. And the Joe cells, they were so fussy. They were insanely fussy. If you even sneezed at the wrong time, they just quit. That's why they didn't go anywhere. But they were a really good proof of concept that you can run an engine on this etheric energy, because that's all they knew of it as, was the ether. The
exactly. Yeah, that time they call it ether. Now we know it's the plasma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is very interesting. Well, but it amazes me that any mechanical movement can be supplied by this plasma if it is well configured. And so the bike experiment, is interesting, because honestly, I don't really dare to install in my van. It's the only one I have all the system, because of the further nano-coating of the whole wiring system of the car. I don't know what will happen. And other thing,
there's no risk. There's no risk with doing this with your system. The nano-coating isn't going to affect any of the actual old school basic thinking electrical systems. It's not going to change anything in your car.
the radios, electronics, computers, they are all connected. So I think that finally, after a certain time, it will nano-coat the whole integrated circuits and whatever is there, right?
And it'll probably make them more efficient.
Oh, well, yeah.
I
That's right.
To go back to your original question about you're not getting the connection between the plasma and the mechanical movement, try to view everything, not just the plasma, but everything as a plasma. Because like I said earlier, matter doesn't exist. It's only our perception of these fields that tells us we have a brick or a dog or a bottle of pop.
Yeah, that's correct.
Field. So there's really no reason why we can't take that one step further and say, okay, if we can organize these fields in a certain way, this gravitational field and this gravitational field on the other side, they're going to be pulling on each other, and that is going to create motion.
Yeah. Yeah, and what about disconnecting the thing? Once you start the plasma flowing, it should work in the regular way. When you turn off the key, it will shut down the machine, or
well, if your intent that when you turn off the key is to stop the car, then the car will stop.
You also notice that Mr. Keshe has special keys for both the electric motorcycle and his own car and so on, with some kind of sort of a nano-coated battery thing attached to it. He gave hints of it in the 72nd workshop on the 30th.
Yeah, he really didn't want to show that, did he?
No, he sort of forced him into it.
But for experimental purposes right now, just for people who want to play this, if you've got a little 4-cylinder fuel-injected car, it would take very little effort to snip the control wires on your fuel injectors and hook them up to a 4-pole switch on your dash, so that after you've run for, say, a month, what happens? If you keep going 50 miles an hour, you're done. You don't ever have to turn them back on again.
yeah, well, how you stop it then?
Well, it's again, you're at that point, you're dealing with intent. You're dealing with the thought aspect of this. So you slow down. You step on the brake. Your intent is to slow the car down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The plasma itself is intelligent. It's aware. And all of the people that I talk to, they look at me like I got 6 heads when I tell them this. But
yeah, it gets pretty freaky when you get right into it. That's right.
Yeah, but I think that the incoming teaching will tell us. I think that, like Mr. Keshe says, there is a lot of things that when they came out will solve all these questions we have. And one more question that, did you read the forums, the other forums? Because one guy was saying that he was nano-coating with the free plasma or something about it, using the free plasma to nano-coat.
I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't fathom it at the moment, but switching between states, that's what Mr. Keshe was talking about just before he left, was looking at how we can interface between all of these plasma and the GANs, and how those interactions work. And this fella may have cracked one of those interactions. I don't know.
One of the things I'd like to bring up that hasn't been touched on is what goes into an internal combustion engine happens to have hydrogen in it. There's water vapor in the air, and if the plasmatic condition allows the hydrogen to expand, as we normally see happen inside an engine, then it would definitely assist in turning the engine around.
If you didn't adjust your timing, you'd fry your pistons and valves.
Well, that's where the balance comes in.
But I don't think that really has anything to do with this. And the simple fact that what he was saying was, eventually, over time, the system gets infused with plasma. You don't need even fuel anymore. So no.
Yeah, how about air though? So if it was, could it be run in a vacuum? That's the question.
Well, he mentioned that the spark is irrelevant, so there's not
Right.
going to be combustion anymore.
Yeah, that was
his
the thing
focus,
that
right?
that he seemed to
We're
hint
getting
at
away
exactly.
from-
That we're moving away from the whole combustion idea. It's not a matter of improved combustion, and he confirmed that with the spark plug idea there, that it's a systemic, it's a total system change for this plasma as it takes over. It interacts with mechanical parts of the system, for example, and that's the one that's pretty hard to get the head around, although definitely magnetic forces and that kind of thing can do very astounding things to materials. So no
Can
doubt
I
about
explain
it.
something?
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Please do.
No problem. If you look at it, you remember when we were a child, we had these spinners we used to put between two fingers and we used to flip it, and it used to create rotation, and the thing used to fly on the ground. We used to call it pinballs.
Yeah, we call them tops here.
The tops, yeah. If you look at it, one finger is gravitational and one finger is magnetical. And the field between the two creates the rotation, the physical rotation. So, in so many ways, you are not looking for... let me explain to you this something, then you understand what happens. If you look how the rotation, mechanical rotation is created, is that at the point of the minimum magnetical, you have the maximum gravitational. And is at that point, as what you call it in the electric term, you create the potential difference. That is where the switch comes, and that switch leads to mechanical rotation. This is why it is hard for you to get your head around it, is that at any level point of the matter, then the process of conversion from gravitational to magnetical leads to the motion of the material. If it is vertical, it will be a vertical movement. If it's a spherical, it will lead to the rotational movement. But the thing is, in all the processes and the system we have created already a rotational movement. So that gives it an ease of flow of the conversion. If we didn't have the camshaft, and if we didn't have the crankshaft, if we didn't have the rotational movement of the wheels, the field forces would have been vertical or horizontal without any rotation. Finding the next point of match of fields to match up with. But in the mechanical system, like the crankshaft or camshaft or the wheels, we already preset what we want from it. Expectation of the interaction is already preset. Coincidentally, this is just by coincidence. So in the part of the universe where there are no four-wheelers and there are no wheels used, that's how motion is created. And this is how the future system you build, which has no wheels and it has no crankshaft or whatever, you will attain motion.
So, Mr. Keshe, for the things that do have wheels and spheres and things that rotate, they will tend to rotate on whatever axis they have now when they're influenced by the plasma. In other words, if I don't know, a roller coaster is going along a certain way, it'll tend to go that same way, but even more so. Will a car's tires tend to rotate the same way,
Because
but easier or more
we
so?
preset, you see, you look at the shape. You shouldn't look at the you look at the shape of the wheel, but you should look at the dissipation of the fields at the interface of that wheel, which dictates the rotation. It's a totally different concept. It's totally different way of looking at it. You look at the rotation of the wheel leading to motion, horizontal motion or whatever, because this is the way you understand it. But when you connect the plasmatic and gravitational, then the wheel at the interface become the point of dissipation, how the fields are dispersed. Then that leads to creation of rotation. Because this is the problem with what I call
I think we lost you there, Mr. Keshe. Hello?
human system and universal system. They are made so distinguished how one works within the other. If we didn't have the others, yeah, we wouldn't have the closeness of similarity between the two. One transfers energy in a mechanical form, one transfers energy in a plasmatic form, but so similar that creates a confusion. You think one is doing the other's job once you go from one to another. This is part of the problem which we see, and it's part of the teaching to clarify. It's this understanding of the totality and not partially.
So it sounds like I should be directing my plasmatic fields through the axle rather than into the wheel itself.
Can you speak louder, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. It sounds like I should be working on directing the plasmatic field through the axle rather than into the wheel itself or around the wheel.
Yes, yes, in a way, because the wheel is the bottom line.
Right.
It's an end product of the conversion which was already done in the crankshaft.
Okay, so my initial idea, my first instinct was to put the magnetic and gravitational, let's call them collectors, on the axle, on either side of the axle of the wheel.
Maybe it's an option. Look at it. Why not? There is no limitation.
I understand, and that was just my first instinct was to configure it in that way.
Well, Mr. Keshe's one of his designs was to have each shock absorber is a reactor plus another reactor in the center of the vehicle, I believe. So that sort of coincides with that idea in a way.
Yeah, I only have shocks on the front of my bike, though.
Oh, your bike, yes, right, indeed. Well.
Well, I'm thinking if I work this out with a very, very simple system, then putting it onto a more complex system is going to be a piece of cake. But if I start with a complex system, it's going to be very difficult to eliminate variables.
Maybe we should run that idea by Mr. Keshe of the rotating coils in a bicycle wheel idea.
I was listening to it.
What do you think of that? Will that make, obviously it'll make some kind of difference, but would it be helpful to rotate the coil or just leave it alone and attach it to a handlebar or some sort of...
I don't know. The bicycle is a interaction of the human body and the mechanical rotation, which have nothing to do to each other. And by putting these systems on does not necessarily mean that we will be able to achieve
desire of motion.
Well, even if I can put the plasma into my legs and burn the plasma instead of calories, that's definitely a step forward.
So to speak, yes.
So to speak.
So to speak. Yeah, you can use the own gas of your own body.
That was my plan from the start, yes.
That's not a problem. That's not. It's just we have to understand new limitations. We have to understand the new interface.
But I still
this is the problem.
Play with it. That's the this we should be able to play with this. We should be able to make friends with the plasma and say, "Hey, pal, let's play and enjoy what we're doing."
You sound like somebody I know.
If I put it on my easy chair and I have a joystick and I just fly around with my easy chair and my joystick, yeah, it'll be fun, but it won't be nearly as much fun as the wind in my hair and the bugs in my teeth.
Yes, well, this was the Mr. Keshe. I remember one of the most profound things I heard him say a couple of years ago in one of his asides in a interview was that we have to learn to pray to our reactors. And he says, the prayer that I use is, I hope you're going to have as much fun today as I'm going to. There's something very similar to that. And you could tell that he had a certain joy that occurred with his interactions with his reactors at that time. And that had to be part of the process, or else it wasn't correct, I think, perhaps.
I think what's coming out tonight is that's a fun.
Pardon?
I say I think what's coming out tonight in the explanations that we've had so far is that joy, that sense of play is fundamental to this process.
In a way, yes. What happened? We are observing a lot of things. You are interested in motion. Some people are interested in the energy. We are observing social structure in the background too, through the same structure. And it's interesting how the social structure comes through the thoughts. You will see very soon. We'll explain this very, very soon. The social structure is the same as what you do between you and your bike or you and your car. You have to extend the horizon of the understanding, and then you'll see how easily everything can be controlled according to what is good for you and what you receive is good for the environment you live in. I start teaching these in the coming weeks because it has to be taught.
Yes.
It has to be. It cannot be on the sideline. We see a lot of physical interactions, a lot of physical movement. We see a lot of emotional movement, and then at the end of it, they all come to be the same source. It's the same with your. Do you need the wheel to pedal for the bike to go, or can you create the field within the structure of the bike that it needs to know that you want it to move in certain direction?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things which I discussed in a lecture with the automobile people who are developing, like Mercedes, is, for example, when you're driving the car, is it your wish to have an accident will create an accident, or if you wish not to have an accident, you never have an accident? Is there a need for insurance companies to insure you, where everybody's wish is not to have an accident? These social interactions will come into light very heavily soon, very heavily.
Yes.
When nobody's interaction is to no harm no one, and your emotion controls the direction of flow of the car, and the whole car reacts in response to, then we don't have any more accidents. Do we need insurance coverage anymore to cover ourselves? There's a lot of new understanding has to be added. This plasma technology will cover everything.
Yeah, over time, Mr. Keshe.
Pardon?
This is Aníbal. No, I'm saying that over time, because we need to get rid of the, hidden fears.
We're talking, the way we see it going, we're talking a matter of years. In a coming handful of years, all this has to be handled.
Noisy here? Noisy?
I just something. Your mic opened up. We could hear everything out from the street.
Yeah, Annabelle, you have to deal with your microphone. You have a real problem with your.
It's part of the social structure.
With your microphone.
Is there a need for insurance for somebody's intention? The wish. Pardon? If you wish to go out and have an accident, okay, you go out and have an accident. But if everybody else's wish is not to have an accident, can you cause an accident? This is part of the social structure, and the one who causes accident, you will find in time. You've seen the key we showed for the car last week. That key carries your intention because you carry it in your pocket. It carries your emotion. And when you start the car, you already preset the condition. These are different ball games. They're not mechanical movements anymore. It's the totality, and everything in the universe is balanced to be. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, this is going to address one question that I had very, very early on when you had first brought up the idea of the flying car, and you had mentioned that it would be limited to about Mach 30 in the atmosphere, otherwise you'd wind up leaving the planet. And I was thinking there needs to be some sort of some way to avoid hitting a duck, because hitting a duck at Mach 30 would not be a very pleasant thing to do. And I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to wait because I know it will be answered. But I'm curious about it, and you've sort of answered it already. That if you don't want to hit a duck, there just won't be a duck there.
No, because as I said, NASA is playing with these things. Not NASA, Boeing is playing with these things. What we see, let's look at a bunch of flies flying. Let's look at a bunch of birds flying. How do they avoid each other? How come hundreds of thousands of them, have you seen these huge flocks? And none touches each other. Mm-hmm. Are they such an expert? Or is it set in their mind that creates certain condition that they don't want to do each other, that even millions of them flying together, they never touch each other?
Yeah.
There's a cave somewhere, 1 million, what do you call it, bats come out of this cave every night. And they never touch each other. The bats hit the wall of the cave, but they never touch each other. Is it their intention? Or are they such an expert that they can watch millions of other birds at the same time?
Well, that's
keeping them apart. That's yeah.
Yeah, it's a field of intention.
Ah, which is plasma.
It's plasmatic, instantaneous. They create their own Coulomb's barrier, which the intention of the others has a say on it, but at the same time keeps them all apart. What about this question raised for me years and years ago? I used to swim in the waters of Bahama quite a lot. And I used to get a snorkel and go in as far as I could go from the shore. And I could see I'm surrounded by the fishes. I was another fish in the millions of fishes. They never touch each other. The only one who was out of tune, it was me. When I made the wrong move, everybody moved. So I wasn't tuned to them, but they were tuned to each other, that they knew this guy wants a room. None of them ever touched me. I could swim for hours in the ocean. I used to get lost sometimes, but I just could see the shore. I knew which way I have to go back. But you could see, how do they communicate? How do they know the gap between each other? Is it intention not to touch creates that kind of barrier? And if you look, they all come very close, but they just jump off each other. It's like bouncing ball, but they never touch. Are we going to learn about our intentions will affect our motion?
So the only time they touch each other is when one wants to eat the other. The intention is to eat.
More or less.
They're able to come into contact.
More or less. I always say frequently, when you eat the food, if you remember, they say you bless the food, but in a way you say thank for receiving the energy from it. Did let's say the fish born and its intention was for you to consume it? Does it match your field?
Does the fish want the experience
of elevating its soul?
Yeah.
Maybe. Or does the physicality of the fish is irrelevant anymore because the soul is separated?
But they say that there is a collective mind, like they don't have all these flocks or the fishes, they have a collective. Is that correct?
This is a lot of rubbish. This is a lot of rubbish. How can you?
Yeah, tell that to my pet fish, Ralph.
Tell that to God. If that was the case, God would have done it with all the problem on this planet. Nobody would have killed each other. Collectively, I decide there will be peace. So there will always be peace.
That's true.
In that sense, like in terms of vehicles, for example, we have these electric cars and we have these automated cars now that are self-driving. And we have the first self-driving semi-trailer that's down in Texas driving around with no driver and so on. These systems are designed so they don't bump into each other. That's what their main objective is, not to crash into something else. We have, for example, the Google self-driving car. The only time it got in an accident in the last couple of million miles is when the human operator tried to take over from the automated system and smacked into something. So I think more and more in the future, in the near future, the driving as such will be taken away from the humans because they can't pay attention long enough and they tend to get distracted, and all of a sudden at Mach 30 you don't want to be distracted by things. You have to know where you're going in a very deliberate way, I would think. So perhaps until our minds, or at least some of our minds, get trained well enough, then we may need like automated systems to rely on to do that same effect of keeping everything separated. What do you think of that? Will there be a transition period, or can we transition right away into that ability to act like the fishes and keep away from smacking each other?
I'm willing to give it a try.
Okay, I'll trust you, but I don't know if I trust your grandmother. Especially if she's not alive. Like mine. That's the idea. I wouldn't trust, your 7-year-old kids, let's say.
Well, the maggrav fields would have a self-adjusting, self-positioning effect, though. So even though you wanted to bring them close together fast enough, they would tend to kind of resist that.
To bounce off, in effect.
take time to adjust the fields for that close proximity. So
yeah, and in terms of the unfortunate duct that we spoke about earlier, perhaps it would be not even disturbed very much if you were traveling at, say, Mach 40, but your fields went ahead for kilometers, let's say, and if, say, that duct was sensed in that field ahead, you could either change your field so that the duct was essentially pushed aside while you zip by, or the fields might be in such a way that when you're traveling, it's not really in a physical realm so much as a energy realm.
Exactly. I think that way, yeah, I think that's correct. Because once you are running 30 Mach, you are in another, you are not like a matter state, maybe you are in a plasmatic state, and you can even go through the duct and not even realize that there was a duct there.
Well, think about what Moran had said when Fukushima went up and he phoned Japan and said, look, I can put a bubble around that reactor. It can do whatever it wants and it doesn't matter because it's not in our reality. It would be a very similar, or I would think a very similar system wrapped around one of these flying devices where you're not even connected to, you could go right through the duct. You wouldn't even know it was there. That was the what I had envisioned when I heard his description of what he was planning for that reactor.
Yeah,
Sounds
but
reasonable, yeah.
we've heard traveling in space and the concept of like there's different levels, I guess, because we've talked about traveling in space without a spacecraft and with a spacecraft, and if you see aliens traveling with a spacecraft, then they're the less evolved ones and this kind of thing. But you can envision that if we're using a spacecraft and we're traveling in space and at high speeds, that you want to be sure to avoid grains of dust that would normally go right through the spacecraft if it was not protected. So the idea there was to have these counter-rotating fields that are able to extend out and protect the ship in a plasmatic magnetic barrier that won't enable.
Like a channel, right? Or you're talking about a channel, like a tunnel or something like that?
No, more like say, it could be an egg-shaped or more elongated, like a tubular field that would be around the craft, and it would extend out for, say, many kilometers out into space in the direction you're traveling in. So if there was particles out at that point, they would be obliterated or pushed aside depending on what fields and what strengths you were dealing with and so on. And in that sense, perhaps you could extend fields out and actually go through the sun or go through a planet or whatever else you wish to travel in.
You want to blow a hole through the sun, Rick?
No, not blowing holes anywhere, just moving fields aside to allow passage. That's all.
Yeah. Well, what was described was a three-layer field. So if a particle got through one, it's not going to get through the second one. If it does get through the second one, it won't get through the third one.
Right.
And they did use the word obliterate, which to me means it's not there anymore. It's gone. So if
well, it become part of the field.
Poke a hole right through it. And on the planet, down on the surface of the planet, if you're doing that, you're obliterating atoms of the atmosphere. So there's got to be way more to it than that. And I think the wording is not really accurate the way it was described.
Okay, well, definitely we need to do more work on that. But I mean, even on a matter basis, you can envision a field. For example, the shear forces in a vortex, in a tornado, or in a whirlpool are quite incredible, enough that in a serious one, it'll actually tear virtually any kind of matter apart into its primary particles and create a plasma, in fact. So even on that matter basis of whipping stuff around that way, you can imagine as if having a tornado around the craft in effect, and but more with the plasmatic magnetic fields rather than matter-based stuff. How much more powerful that could be in terms of shear factors.
Oh, I'm sure a very detailed explanation will be forthcoming on this sometime.
Yes, right. We're not quite there yet with our reactor combos.
And with my bicycle, I don't mind hitting bugs at 30K. That's not so bad.
Right.
Hey, Rick, can I share my screen?
Okay, let me stop sharing here and allow you to share.
There we go.
When you guys have the system ready, I don't have a DeLorean, but I got this car that could.
Oh yeah.
Be.
I've seen
retrofitted.
this. I've seen this before somewhere. I don't. What is this now? Is this? It's hand built, isn't it?
Three-wheeler. Yeah, I built this started it back in '84, but never finished it yet. Waiting
Was
for
that? Wait a minute. Was that the same year as the Back to the Future movie? Or it was '83, I think it was. 80.
I don't remember.
Huh. By
Is
coincidence.
that a car base or is that all handmade?
It's all handmade. It's fiberglass body. The front is a VW 69 VW front end. The back is a motorcycle. Back end.
Nice job.
It
Cool.
has the motorcycle engine back there, but I've been waiting for a new propulsion system to put on it and finish it. So hopefully this.
I love that way of steering.
Yeah, the steering wheel comes out.
Not wheel, it's a stick.
That was the shifter.
Ah.
Yeah.
That was like the motorcycle foot shifter converted to a hand shifter.
Yeah. Huh, nice.
Good.
Lots of work.
So, because usually I'm the stupid one, why do you need a car to have your propulsion going? You can sit in your chair, you're in a bubble anyway. So
Great
Do you still have it, Robert? Do you still have it?
Sorry?
Robert, do you still have that car?
I think he said he did. I don't hear him responding right now, but I believe he did.
Because it will be a good prototype to insert all these coils or reactors or whatever.
Sure. Looks like it'd be great fun to work on.
Oh, I think Sandor wants to show us something too.
Yeah, thank you for the great inspiration, Robert. In the 70s, as a kid, I used to draw such a prototype designs and so on, also some three-wheeler, just with not so good for stability in case of going on wheels, because I had a design with two wheels on the back, one wheel in the front, and something like this, about this shape.
The Reliant Robin.
Yeah. So that was, just let me change the pen with a better one. It was something like this, backside with a T-shape. I mean the top in a T-shape. Something like this. One wheel in the front, actually well hidden, not well seen, and the doors were just designed to open in this way. can see that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the single wheel up front is incredibly unstable.
Yes, I know. So that's why I never made it. But the steering was with the stick, with the single hand, so also good for the handicap one, people. So no legs are involved.
Mr. Bean made it.
Yeah. Something this shape. Not so good to work with these pens. So thank you for inspiration. So maybe it's time to go back to such models and to make them with plasma propulsion instead of.
You have that car, Sandor?
No, I was a kid when I was drawing it for in many versions and with mechanical details, and just I didn't. I never built it.
Oh, because
so,
yeah.
Actually, a top view would be something like this.
Maybe all we need nowadays is a blow-up car. It's made out of thin plastic, and we just blow it up, and that's the Coulomb barrier we use for our reactors, and away we go.
Oh, or why not a flying wheelchair? You make your you have your chair. Just sit on it and create your own plasma bubbles or magnetic gravitational field bubbles, and just take your direction.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because the mobility chairs, what they call mobility chairs, which are powered wheelchairs now, have all the electrics that would be interesting to convert to a plasmatic system as an interim kind of way to try to develop that system, let's say.
Yeah, if you want to go on still on wheels, but the idea is to get rid of wheels.
Yes, indeed, that would be the ultimate. Been working on that idea.
Those power chairs here on the property to play with, from
Yeah.
really old shop riders to the latest 3-wheel 40-kilometer-an-hour cruisers.
Yeah, some of them are quite amazing now, actually. And I saw, I was talking with Guy, it's funny you guys mentioned these 3-wheelers tonight, because I talked with Guy that I saw this 3-wheeler earlier today. It was one of these 3-wheeled bicycles, 2 wheels up front, 1 wheel in the back. You sort of lie down while you pedal it. But this one was different in that it had an electric motor on it. So this guy I was stuck in traffic, and this guy was just whipping along in the bike lane, and he zipped over into just a pedestrian crosswalk and zipped across the crosswalk and then back into the bike lane. He was gone blocks ahead before anybody else even turned the corner in their vehicles. And I was quite amazed at how quick and efficient it looked to get around. So you can imagine that same thing that didn't have wheels and was able to just zip in amongst all the vehicles and people because he happened to have the Keshe plasmatic device attached to it or whatever, you know. It'd be great.
Oh, the possibilities are endless.
They are totally endless. But we just need one possibility. That's a DeLorean by October 21st at all costs to levitate. Not just the DeLorean, but to levitate. We gotta or hoverboard and or DeLorean, especially both of them together. If that could both be presented on the 21st of October, you would have the entire world at your fingertips, essentially.
If you see me doing the
Sorry, go ahead.
if you see me doing the ET fly by the moon thing by Sook there, you'll know who it is.
See this flying bicycle going by. What the hell was that? Well, you know, I was out here a couple of years ago, well, about 5, 6 years ago now, and sitting on my back deck down by the ocean, and suddenly this boat came flying by, literally flying. Inflatable Zodiac-looking boat was literally flying overhead, quite low, less than a couple thousand feet, about 1,000 feet probably. And then it turns out a local guy has a parasail-powered boat. So from underneath, it looks just like a boat. You can't even hardly see the sail part. There's no wings as such. There's just a parasail. So he had it rigged up so he could land in the water and take off in the water and so on. Anyway, it gets away from the topic here, which is always got to get back to plasmatic. What do you got there, Shandor, for us? Oh, no audio. What's happening there, Shandor?
Guys, did you hear about the Grenikov this device we copy based on insects? I have the link here if someone is interested, because it was so simple. He just discovered how to create this gravitational effect, but in a copy nature. And here is the link. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Grebenikov?
Grebenikov, yeah. You heard about him?
Yeah,
Yes,
we've
his device was looking something like this.
Yeah, that's right, Shandor. Shandor was on it before he even finished. And now we
It's
have.
instant communication.
Yeah, that's right. He just heard.
The message before you talk the words.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way it works. That's the way, and then the picture's worth 1,000 words, so he's already talked 1,000 words before you ask the question. So that's not bad, not bad.
Well, here is, if someone is interested, here is a link with the story of this guy and the pictures what Shandor is drawing.
Yeah.
Of him. At the very end of the page is the picture he's levitating, let's say, with a very simple and device, exactly as Shandor drew it.
Right. See if I can find that here.
At the very end is the rest is the story.
Yeah, you get a couple of thousand bugs for your platform, though.
Looks like this.
And back to just a second, somebody had a comment about the stability for these three wheelers with one wheel in the front. It's so not so good. So maybe it depends on construction. Have you seen dragsters?
Have I seen which?
Dragster. Yes, that's right. And they usually have two wheels in the front, but the wheels can be very close together actually in the modern dragster because you want the least wind resistance, so they tend to put them as close as they can. And small.
Dragsters don't tend to go around corners either. If you look up top,
and sometimes the front wheels don't even touch the ground through the length of the quarter mile, and they can steer. They can steer by.
So anyway, here the idea was to put the center of gravity somewhere here.
Well, if you look at Top Gear Reliant Robin on YouTube, you'll find Jeremy taking a Reliant out, and every single corner he rolls it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Enough said.
That's a production car that was actually built and sold, and they're all over Europe still. Apparently, there's a bunch of them out there.
In any case, maybe the reactor combination will be unstable with two reactors at the back and one in the front as well.
Well, if they're equidistant, it shouldn't make so much of a difference. But
are you better off with two reactors in the front and one in the back? Will it fly back? Will it fly backwards better than forwards? Let's put it that way. That'll be it. You know, we can't get this thing to fly. We can't get this thing to fly. Have you tried it backwards? Okay. Hey, now it works, right? And that could be the way it is in some of this research that we do.
So guys, there is no need to build model reactors anymore, right? Or do you think it's still necessary to create these ping pong balls, or we just move forward and continue with from Alex and after that?
The rotating reactors were a needed step in learning and understanding to go gradually. If you start talking about free plasma without showing something mechanical and which you can touch, how many people would even listen till the end?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, but from now on, to create all kind of energy sources or whatever, there is no need to have a moving reactor, right?
That's
well, but they say with the Alex system, even just to start the system is necessary, the reactor, but also, you know, burying the system on Earth or just put it in on ground, it will work anyway.
Have you proved? Who do you know who has proved that?
Well, Alex told that.
Yeah. So we're basing everything on what Alex says.
Well, even Moran said that you just take it out and lay it on the ground and it'll work.
By the way, do you know what? Do you have any update once they disconnect the reactors? If steel is gaining 500% of energy, I mean the flow to the grid is 5 times the one that is getting in. Still the same?
I believe so.
It's all the same deal as far as I know. I don't know if that setup is even up anymore. Oh, I see. Sure, I missed your drawing here, Shandor. What do you?
Yeah, it was one of the systems showed by Mr. Keshe. You remember, it was such a thing in a tube between a battery case and so on. And it has here through 2 coils around output and so on, and guns inside. There are many things which now we can build, test, develop, and bring it to the next step of development now in the summer. So we have got so many things, so many information. And how about this other system?
Did they show how the coils are connected? Or
yes, we are doing pictures. This is the Marcos system.
Yeah, but Marcos.
So how about to do this with coils in this shape? Trying different arrangements.
And there's a question in the live stream earlier about like your top coil arrangement there with the 3 coils was very similar to the coils on a heating element on a stove. And the person was asking, I think it was Doug McDonald, wasn't it? He was asking, are these coils on the stove nano-coated from being heated and cooled so much over time, and would they work? Are they the same basically? What do people think about that?
I would think that they probably would wind up nano-coated, but the nichrome wire that's down inside the ceramic part of that, it's pretty much encapsulated in that ceramic. So it's not going to contact the air. It's not going to contact any hydrogen or any of the elements of the air.
And plus it would be nichrome and not copper, so it would have its own set of environmental conditions that would be required for it to perform best or whatever, I suppose.
Anyway, about heating, I'm now in a room where I have some boxes with experiments and so on, and containers and lenses and nanomaterials and so on. And whenever my wife enters here, she says it's much warmer here, what I'm doing, because it's so hot. And actually, I can measure 3 centigrades higher temperature than the rooms which are just nearby. So I'm just having here some containers with nano-coating, some bottles with guns, and some other nano-coating things and so on. And my wife, whenever enters here, she says, "Oh, it's so hot here." Meanwhile, you have the same windows, the same position on the same front of the building, like the other rooms which are nearby. We have 3 rooms, one near to the other, and the kitchen in between. And here, always, I can measure about 3 centigrades higher temperature in the other room. So maybe I will try to move this to rent a garage and to see whether this heat will go down here and it will go up in the garage. Just I'm hunting for an affordable place, which may be about $100 a month or something like that, and to be possible to get water and internet.
You think that the temperature difference is due to what? The creation of GANs or the reactor working?
Maybe I have something here which is heating, so it's a lot of plasma here. And
or maybe it may be your presence, Sandor.
My what?
Your presence, you're a big guy. You're heating the room, man.
Yeah, so what's interesting, when I'm not here, it's still the same. When I'm not here, it's still the same.
That's kidding, that's kidding.
Well, it's not kidding, it's not kidding. So, you know, we are sleeping in a double French bed with my wife, and if I turn my face to her, always she says, wow, she asked me to turn on the other side because I'm radiating so much heat to her. And my body temperature is lower than her. It's not a body temperature. It's the plasma interaction.
Yeah, it could be. I think that Vincent was saying something similar with the environment where he was running the reactors. He noticed a change in there.
Yeah. So we don't know yet how much energy is in 1 cubic centimeter of guns.
Well, if you figure out how to create heat, let me know, because I live in a motorhome and it gets bloody cold in here in the winter.
Okay, for sure. For sure, it's one of the subjects. Sorry, I have a phone call. I have to reply.
So much to think about now. This is crazy.
Yeah, so many things. So what I was thinking that, you know, in the system with the 3 coils, the most powerful that Mr Keshe showed in the 72nd workshop, you know what I'm talking about? The one that's built with the center, middle, and other coil. The way that it's connected, and I don't know if they connect both ends to the grid or where it goes, but if it goes to any source of energy, should be very, very careful that not, you know, scratching the nano-coating, because it will be a short circuit for any, you know, source of energy. Even, you know, we are not in the plasma anymore. If it touches the copper itself, I mean. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll see some plasma created, all right, but not the kind that Mr. Keshe talks about. Except when he says,
the nano-coating, and there is a short circuit, immediate short circuit, because it's matter state, the copper itself, right? So it would blow the fuses or whatever.
Right. Well, that is a problem. That it may be that it's better to say inductively connect it rather than directly, or to lightly connect the nano-coated parts or something like that.
Except induction will work with DC, Rick.
Well, with plasma it will, though.
Okay.
It's supposed to be connected to the grid, or it has 2 ends, right? And I didn't see where they connected to, just to the neutral and life of the flag, or how they?
If I remember right, he described it as very similar to what Alex did, except for it's many orders of magnitude more powerful. It would be something for supplying power for a large manufacturing plant or an entire city, something like that.
Well, yes, yeah, I remember that. But so it's exactly the same principle. It goes to the grid and provides all the energy and takes some of it, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
It appears to be the same configuration, just in a slightly different process. That's all.
Yeah. I was planning to do something, but instead of using, because for the sensitive nature of going into the grid, first of all, I can't do it here in the US, but trying to make an experiment using another source just as a starter, like a battery or something, and to see if I can create a demand, and doing that same system in a smaller scale, and connect the battery and try to see if it keeps charging the battery and the load at the same time without exhausting. I don't know if it will work, but I will try that.
I don't know that scale actually makes that much of a difference with these systems.
Oh, you don't think so?
Well, a lot of the folks they've been playing with the beads, and there's one fella, he's got 4 beads hooked up, and it's 4 beads. It's not any special configuration. Large LED lamp, or else LED light. I think it's a 5-watt light, and that's just 4 beads. And I mean, it doesn't appear that there's any sort of a ratio there. I was looking at counting the beads on the inner and the outer circle, thinking prime numbers, golden ratio. There's got to be
exactly
a sweet spot in there somewhere. But I don't think it really matters if you have 5 beads on the inside and 11 on the outside, or 50 beads on the inside and 110 on the outside. I don't think you're going to get that much more performance out of the system.
Well, I was talking about the number of spires, the turns.
Well, it would go along the same route. Now, if the volume of nano layers, say the square millimeter surface area of your nano layers determines how much plasma you're going to collect, then yes, a large system is going to produce a large amount of plasma. A small system will produce a small amount of plasma. But if we look at the work of Mrfixitrick, who calculated there's an infinite amount of energy within a cubic centimeter of space.
Yeah. Trillions of universes. Yeah.
How big a piece of infinite do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. But what if instead of making a coil, I will try also just with a nano-coated wire without many turns on it, just a straight one connected in the same way, because
then you're eliminating the conduit aspect of the coil. Remember, Moran was saying,
the tube
coated coil, you're creating a conduit for the plasma.
Oh yeah. Sorry, this is a test again. Do you hear the noise now, or you hear me well?
I'm hearing you pretty good right now. How about others?
No noise coming. I was thinking there is something which is scanning from time to time around the microphone, like a radar, but if you have an air conditioning which is doing this sweeping, in that case it was the air blown to the microphone.
No, I have it far away from there.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about the same thing. Thanks, Shandor. Yep.
Okay, so it's anyways, not any radar there, it's the air conditioning, probably.
I think the automatic gain control made a huge difference, I think, there. So
Sure.
Yeah, because it will go very high when you're not speaking.
Right.
To the top.
It's much better anyway. It's less sounding like an alien from Planet 10 there for a while.
Planet Zeus.
Yeah, alien from Planet Zeus.
So
Okay,
at least we
now-
found out that mystery, and you can do the same settings for the Skype next time, because in Skype also it's that sound always coming.
Right, good point.
Well, yeah, good to know. Yes.
Okay, I wonder if we should wind things up here. It's been on for 3-4 hours or whatever the heck it's been. Or Shandor, did you have something you wanted to show there? I noticed your screen was up.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
let's go with that.
I was just let me delay this. Acknowledge. Okay. So next thing. So how about, have you thought to combine this toroidal coil with another coil which is inside? So first you make a coil like this, then you wind a second coil on the top of it. So the direction of the flow will be just 90 degrees.
Is nano-coated both?
Yes, of course. So
Yeah,
first
yeah,
you make
yeah.
the coils, then you nano-coat the entire thing.
But then you're putting the inner coil where the plasma should be.
First you make the inner coil, then you make the outer coil, then you nano-coat everything.
Okay.
How do you see the plasma flow through that system, though?
That's a good question. So please figure out. And share with us.
Well,
Its
it could.
purpose is to give inspiration, not to give something to be copied.
Okay, so here's some inspiration. The first coil you mentioned, the it looks like a tennis racket sort of shape, let's say. Okay, that could be the inner electrode that we've seen before in other reactors. You have an inner core electrode, which is the plasma tends to be around that. Okay. And then you got your outer coil, the one there, that the plasma will be inside. So the plasma should be between the outer coil and the inner coil, ideally.
What will be in the center?
The center of both of them, that would be probably the free plasma created by the plasmas, the other plasma. But for sure...
I can't find a reference because it's already disappeared from the internet. In 1997, so many years ago, I have seen on the internet on a bulletin board system with all kind of hacking, fracking, and other tricks and tips. It was somebody who posted a device for manipulating the gravity, and it had such a toroidal coil over the other. So here maybe there were about 100 turns, and here there were maybe 300 turns of other coil, and he was adding DC together with a rheostat to play with it, connected to a power source, a high voltage power source, and so on. And here it had the other also with a rheostat, and also playing with the voltage on that one. Anyway, it was something interesting. And he said, when you start playing with combinations of the currents which go through them, you just expect to open the gates of the hell. So beware what you see there, because it will start change what you see. So it was nothing nano-coated at that time, of course.
But well, it has an enamel isolated.
Yes, it was enameled wire, magnet wire.
But what happened? Say it again, please. I didn't understand that. What happened? What was the effect there?
He didn't say that. He said, build it and see it. It's a device for manipulating gravity, he said. It's for manipulation of gravity.
Might
it was in
introduced
1997.
by the Rodin Coil guys.
It's a BBS, the bulletin board system, right?
I wonder if the Rodin Coil guys have thought of something like that. Because it strikes me that the outer
Yeah.
coil will be more efficient in a rodent type of configuration.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are many interesting things to improve such things.
I like the toroidal shape. It looks like everything, fits there. I mean,
Well,
the interchange between dimensions according to Rodin comes with the toroidal.
By the way, before to read this in 1997, so now back to future thing, it was in 1978 when I played by making a small coil with an enameled wire about this size, and I continued to make it around it. And I knew that shell have a special purpose, so it was from one wire, but once made the inside, then the outer, and ended. And it was one of the forgotten projects. I had the coil, but I didn't do nothing about. So again, it was such an inspiration while I was a youngster.
Look at that idea. If you look at what you have there, if you were to say that the outer coil is, if it was a superconducting coil, in other words, where are we getting the interference from here? Brett. Maybe Brett wants to talk there.
Someone try making the beads with a copper tubing, small copper tubing. They can do that instead.
Make it with small copper tubing instead, I think he said.
Yeah, instead of just the wires, and see what happens.
Right, yeah, that's another possibility for sure. And you could even run GANs through it with a pump if you had copper tubing as well.
Yeah, I made one while we've been sitting here.
Right, but the point I wanted to make, I just wanted to insert the concept here that if that inner coil could be looked at as the actual superconducting ring that forms when you have the outer coil as a superconductor anyway, a superconducting ring that, especially one that rotates, has very special properties that is known to science now. It can actually alter gravity.
Yeah.
So
for the guys that want to play with the small copper tubing, you can get capillary tubing from refrigeration dealers. And it's a 1 millimeter inside diameter copper tubing. Very nice stuff.
3 millimeter outside? 3 millimeter
What
outside?
you guys are describing, if you can turn on my screen real quick. I did it while we were sitting here.
Okay, let me try it here. Yep, there we are.
Very nice. Very nice.
Right.
I wrapped it around a drill bit and then I slid it over the tubing, and I figured I'd fill it with GANs.
And if you have no nearby, you may go to a scrapyard and to get out some copper pipes from old refrigerators. And also in boilers, the thermostat is extended with a very thin copper pipe.
Yeah.
It's the
That's
thermostat
right.
element.
Yeah, I've bought one of those just to get the pipe.
It has a bulky thing at the end, and then it comes narrow, and it's a long tube and so on.
Yeah, they're typically filled with an alcohol. So it becomes more
Yes.
Have another beer?
All right. What else we
So,
got?
okay, thank you for the
Thank you, Jamie.
additions.
Well, sorry for monopolizing the evening tonight.
Oh, not at all. I am very, very thankful, actually. You brought up some great points and had a good interaction with Mr. Keshe there. We got some more information liberated, and it got us all fired up a bit. So, and it brought things back to basics at the same time. So I think on all counts, it was a great night. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, John.
You're most welcome.
I think I should probably wrap things up here, though. It's getting on and getting a little tired, so I think we should probably finish for tonight, unless there's any other questions or things that people need to deal with. We always got to keep going if people have to or wish to continue. I've never seen Mr. Keshe say no, even when he's super tired. When it comes to, of course, we could go for days on this too. Having said that, because all you guys we all have enough information and experiences that we could go on in many tangents and many realms and have great fun at it. Actually, I'm sure it's more of a problem of limiting ourselves than not. I mean, we talked. I thought maybe we could just end it with this. I'm not sure if I can do this though. I know. I'll just wait. Hang on just a sec. Let me turn that audio down. I'll just show a picture of it, and that way I won't get in trouble for copyright here. But basically, this is the YouTube video, and I'll show you the site so that you can go there if you wish. There's the thing, and I don't like to show it because it's showing a copyrighted video gets me in trouble on Livestream. But this is the world's simplest electric train, and as you can see, it's a copper coil of wire. And what this guy does is he puts together a very simple apparatus, which is a battery and a couple of magnets on each end of the battery. Oh, I'm looking at Livestream and I have to do the screen share here. Just a second, we'll do it this way. Okay.
Yeah, it's a super simple system to make.
You see it there now? You got the battery and a couple of magnets on each end, and then he puts that inside a coil of wire, copper wire, and it will actually shoot through the coil, and he develops a whole circle with it, and this thing will go shooting through the circle. If you go to the YouTube there and do it, I'll put in the link in the chat and people can see it at the top of the screen as well right now on the live stream. Where's the chat going now? Oh, help, I can't find anything. Door number 1, window number 1, window number 2. Oh, there we go. There's it's the wrong link. And
it's posted in the chat, Rick.
Oh, it is. I had to get it out anyway. All right, thank you. Emmanuel did it already. Beat the pants off me on that one. Okay, well, anyway, that's it's interesting to see this idea. And if you imagine that little magnet thing as plasma going through the coil and going around and around and around and around, because it's self-powered and it gets more and more powerful and faster as it goes around. And then you have a plasma that builds because it's going faster, it creates more of a field, and it starts interacting with its environment more. So, in that sense, thank you all for coming tonight. It's been a lot of fun. And I think we'll wrap things up for now. And come back again next week. But we also have the Knowledge Seekers Workshop, which is tomorrow night, basically, my time, but Thursday, 9 a.m. Central European time. That'll be the 73rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And yeah, so that'll be the next one. I'll just put the last screen up here of the electric moped. I think it is. I think it's a moped, not a motorcycle, just a moped.
If it doesn't have bicycle pedals on it, it's just a scooter.
Okay, electric scooter, I guess. Yeah, right. That Mr. Keshe showed at the last workshop and so on.
It's classified as a step-through electric motorcycle. I think I had one.
Yeah, interesting device to work on for this kind of electric plasma to electric, plasma electric conversions. Geez, that might be a good one for the near future. Doing plasma conversions on electric vehicles. I could see myself doing such benevolent work, I think.
Oh, there'll be lots of industries for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there'll be no shortage of people wanting to do it and wanting to have it done once it catches on, I'm sure. And hopefully one of us will be the ones that will show the way how to do that. So, and maybe even by next week, but at all costs, by October 21st, we must have a levitating DeLorean or hoverboard or hoverboard. Okay, that's going to be it for now. Thanks a lot, everybody, and we'll see you next time around.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.